Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're really getting into the weeds of texture artistry, in 3D animation and video games.
Yeah, it's a fascinating area. We've looked at quite a bit, career advice, some industry insights, and perspectives from actual artists working in the field.
Exactly. And our goal really for this deep dive is to give you a clear picture of what these artists do, what skills they need, how they make everything look so real.
Or stylized, depending on the project. But yeah, understanding their contribution to the visual appeal is key. Hopefully we can offer some valuable insights, whether you're thinking about this as a career or you're just curious about how games and animations get their look.
Right, so let's start there. A texture artist. What is their main job day to day? What's the core responsibility?
Okay, so imagine you have a 3D model, right? Like a character or a proc. It's just a shape, maybe gray or white, blank.
Like a digital sculpture.
Exactly. The texture artist is the one who comes in and gives that sculpture its surface. They define what it's made of visually. Is it rough stone, smooth plastic, weathered leather, fur, skin?
Ah, okay, so they're painting on the detail, the feel of the surface.
Precisely. They create all those surface qualities. Skin, hair, clothing, the bark on a tree, the rust on metal.
Yeah.
Everything. It's all about making that 3D object look like it belongs in its world, giving it that sense of, well, tangibility.
Gotcha. And what tools are they using to work this magic? Is it just like digital painting?
It involves digital painting, yeah, but with specialized tools. Software like Substance Painter is huge now. ZBrush is often used for fine details, and good old Photoshop is still a staple.
Okay.
These tools let them paint really complex details directly onto the models or create textures that can be applied. The aim is always adding depth, realism, making it visually interesting.
Right. There's that quote from Giorgio Lorenzetti. He's a top texture artist.
Oh, yeah, I know the one.
He said, "My job as a texture artist is to apply the surface properties to an object and to make it resemble real life." Sounds straightforward, but I bet the process isn't.
Not at all. It's pretty involved. Can I walk you through the typical steps?
Please do, yeah.
Okay, so first up, references. Tons of references. You gather images, study real-world objects. How does light hit this specific type of fabric? What tiny imperfections does old wood have? You really need to observe.
Makes sense. You need to know what real looks like before you can fake it.
Exactly. Then you get into the software Photoshop, Substance Painter, whatever fits the workflow. And you start building the texture. You're thinking about resolution, how much detail does it need? Higher for close-ups, maybe lower for distant objects.
Okay.
Then there's tiling. This is super important for environments like brick walls or ground textures. You need to make the texture repeatable so it can cover a large area without obvious seams. Like, you don't want it to look like digital wallpaper.
Right, that would totally break the immersion.
Totally. And layering. You build up complexity, a base color, then maybe some dirt, some scratches, some variations in roughness. Layers add realism.
And I guess it has to work in the actual game or animation, not just look good in the paint software.
Oh, absolutely crucial. Optimization is a constant concern. You have to think about the target platform. Is it for a phone, a high-end PC, a console?
Because a super detailed texture might slow things down.
Exactly. It could kill performance if it's too heavy, uses too much memory. So you optimize, and then you test it in the engine. That's the final check. Does it look right under the game's lighting? Does it perform well? That whole sequence, reference to engine, that's the core loop.
Wow, okay. It really is that mix of art and tech you hear about. So skills. What are the absolute must-haves for a texture artist?
You definitely need that artistic foundation. A good eye for color, understanding light and shadow, how light interacts with different surfaces is fundamental. Composition basics help too. That's the art side.
And the tech side.
Proficiency with the tools is non-negotiable. Substance Painter, ZBrush, Photoshop, you need to know your way around them. Be comfortable.
Beyond those core things, what separates a good texture artist from a great one?
Attention to detail. It's huge. Realism often lies in the subtle stuff. Tiny scratches, faint color variations, the way dust settles. Your eye picks that up even if you don't consciously register it.
The imperfections make it perfect, sort of.
Kind of, yeah. And collaboration. Texture artists don't work in a bubble. They're talking to modelers constantly, checking with the art director, maybe liaising with lighting artists. Communication is key to making sure everything fits together visually.
And there are ways to learn this stuff, right? Like online courses.
Oh yeah, definitely. Platforms like Yellowbrick and countless others offer specialized training. You can really build those skills.
This field moves fast, though. New software, new techniques.
Yeah.
How do artists keep up? Seems like you could fall behind quickly.
You really have to be committed to continuous learning. It means reading industry sites, maybe magazines, watching tutorials online. There are tons of those. Going to workshops or conferences when possible.
Networking too, I imagine.
Absolutely. Talking to other artists, seeing their work, sharing techniques, being part of the community helps you stay current. It's something that came up in those interview questions we looked at. How do you stay updated? It's vital.
I bet they face some really tough challenges. Can you think of an example? Like, what's a notoriously difficult texture to get right?
A realistic human face is always a big one, especially for close-ups in games or films.
Why is that so hard?
Well, think about skin. It has so much subtle variation. Color zones, pores, tiny hairs, wrinkles, subsurface scattering. That's how light penetrates the surface slightly and bounces around, giving skin its soft look.
Oh, yeah.
Capturing all that detail accurately is one thing, but then you also need it to be high resolution enough for close-ups, but optimized enough not to break the game's performance budget. It's a serious balancing act.
So how do they tackle something like that? What's the process?
Again, references are king. Studying lots of photos of skin, maybe even using 3D scans if possible. Then it's meticulous work in tools like ZBrush for sculpting fine details like pores and wrinkles, and Substance Painter or Mari for layering the color, roughness, and other maps.
And lots of testing, I assume.
Constantly. And lots of back and forth with the character modeler to ensure the texture fits the model perfectly, and with the lighting artist to see how it reacts in scene. It's very iterative.
And speaking of iteration, production schedules change. Directors change their minds. How do texture artists deal with needing to revise their work, maybe significantly?
Flexibility is key. You learn to anticipate changes sometimes, keep your files organized, maybe work non-destructively where possible so you can backtrack or adjust things more easily.
So good workflow habits.
Definitely. Good documentation helps too. And clear communication with whoever requested the change, the art director, the client, understand why the change is needed. And always keep backups. You don't want to lose hours of work. That proactive approach is really important.
Okay. We've talked about skin, but obviously they do everything. Metal, wood, plastic, fabric. How does the approach change for different materials? Like shiny metal versus old, rough wood.
It changes completely based on the material's properties. You start by studying references for that specific material. What's its base color? How reflective is it? Does it have bumps, grooves, patterns?
Right. Metal reflects a lot, wood, not so much.
Exactly. For metal, you'd focus on getting the reflectivity right, maybe adding scratches or smudges that affect the highlights. For wood, you'd focus on the grain, the knots, the color variations, maybe some wear and tear along the edges. You use different maps like bump maps or normal maps to simulate that surface detail without adding more polygons to the model. Understanding those unique characteristics is fundamental.
It's like they need a bit of physics knowledge almost, understanding how light behaves on different surfaces.
In a practical sense, yes. You need to observe and replicate those effects convincingly.
Now, you mentioned optimization before. This balance between making something look amazing and making sure it actually runs on the target machine. How do they manage that tightrope walk?
It's something they have to think about from the start, really. You always have the target platform in mind. Is this texture going to be seen up close or far away? How much memory can it realistically use?
So you might make different versions of a texture.
Sometimes, yeah. Using different resolutions based on distance, that's called mip mapping. The engine often handles it automatically, but you need to provide the right source texture. You're constantly testing things in the actual game engine, seeing how it looks, checking the performance impact.
And sometimes compromises are needed.
Often. You might have this incredibly detailed texture, but if it drags the frame rate down, you have to find ways to simplify it without losing the essential look. It requires creative problem solving. You have to know where you can cut corners without it being too noticeable.
Okay, stepping back a bit, where does the texture artist fit within the whole game development team structure? Who do they work most closely with?
They're right in the middle of the art pipeline, usually. They take the models from the 3D modelers.
Who might have worked from concept art?
Exactly, from the concept artists. So the texture artist needs to understand the concept art's intention and the modeler's geometry. They apply the surfaces, and then their work feeds into lighting and rendering. So very close collaboration with modelers, concept artists, and often the art director to ensure that final look is consistent and matches the vision.
And I think one of the sources mentioned in simpler, maybe 2D games, it's a bit different.
Yeah, in some simpler styles, especially 2D, detailed texture work might be less of a focus. Color and shape might do more of the heavy lifting. but in most 3D production, they're absolutely essential.
Let's talk software again for a moment. Substance Painter came up a lot. Why is that tool such a big deal right now?
It really revolutionized things. Substance Painter is kind of the industry standard now for texturing 3D models directly. It's incredibly powerful and intuitive for painting materials onto a model in real time.
Painting materials, not just colors.
Right. You're painting with smart materials that have properties like roughness, metallicness, height information all built in, and you see the results instantly on your model under realistic lighting. It's used everywhere: games, VFX, architecture, even fashion visualization.
It uses something called PBR.
Yes, physically based rendering. That's a key part of its power. PBR materials aim to mimic real-world physics of light and surfaces. The big advantage is that if you create a PBR material correctly, it should look consistently good and realistic under different lighting conditions and in different rendering engines. Unreal, Unity, V-Ray, whatever. Consistency is huge.
Okay, and what about Substance Designer? Is that the same thing?
Similar family, but different focus. Painter is mostly for applying textures to specific models. Designer is more about creating the base materials and patterns themselves, often procedurally.
Procedurally meaning
Yeah.
generated by rules and algorithms.
Exactly. You can create complex patterns, like fabrics or intricate grounds, using nodes and parameters. It's incredibly powerful for creating reusable base materials. Many artists use both, create a base material in Designer, then bring it into Painter to customize and apply it to their model.
Got it. So Painter for application, Designer for creation, they work together.
Very often, yes, they're part of the same ecosystem.
This gives a great picture of the what and how. Let's talk who. If someone wants to become a texture artist, what kind of jobs are out there? We saw that 3D character artist posting.
Right, that's a common one. Texture artist, material artist, surface artist. Sometimes it's specialized, like character texture artist or environment texture artist. The skills listed in those postings are pretty consistent, though.
Like what?
Digital sculpting, usually ZBrush, strong 3D modeling fundamentals, UV mapping, that's essential, laying out the 3D model surface into 2D space so you can paint on it.
Ah, okay. Like unfolding a cardboard box.
That's a great analogy, yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously, deep knowledge of texturing software like Substance Painter Designer, Photoshop, maybe Mari, understanding shading, lighting, and often anatomy if you're doing characters.
And how do you prove you have these skills?
Portfolio. 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 Especially in a visual field like this, Giorgio Lorenzetti really emphasized this. Your portfolio is everything.
Where do people show their portfolios?
Online platforms are key. ArtStation is huge for game and film artists. Instagram, LinkedIn, personal websites. You need to get your best work out there where recruiters and art directors can see it. Like Lorenzetti said, you need to make sure it's as good as it can be.
So for someone listening right now, inspired, what's the path? What steps should they take?
Start with the fundamentals, seriously. Drawing, painting, understanding form, light, color. Take art classes if you can. Practice constantly.
Even if the goal is digital.
Especially then. The computer is just a tool. The art fundamentals are what matter. Then, yeah, learn the software. Pick an area, maybe environment art, maybe characters in focus, master Photoshop, Substance Painter, ZBrush, maybe Blender or Maya for modeling and UVs.
And understand the whole process?
Yes, understand where texturing fits in the whole 3D pipeline, how it relates to modeling, lighting, animation, and practice collaboration, even on personal projects. And be prepared for the industry. It can be demanding. Deadlines, long hours sometimes. Lorenzetti was candid about that.
Yeah, his perspective seemed really grounded. Anything else that stood out from him?
I thought his background was interesting. Classics and industrial design before textures. It shows there isn't just one path.
Yeah.
He really stressed observation skills, just looking closely at the world around you, and communication.
And tools. Did he favor specific ones?
He mentioned Mari as his main tool, which is another high-end texturing package, often used in VFX. But he acknowledged Substance Painter and Designer were game changers. His best advice, I thought, was never forget that the computer is only a tool. Keep observing, keep learning the art side, feed your creativity.
And he mentioned the dark sides.
Yeah, the stress, the tight schedules. It's good to go in with eyes open. It's a passion-driven industry, but it's still a job with pressures.
This has been incredibly insightful. Really paints a picture of what goes into those visuals we often take for granted. To wrap things up, what are the main takeaways here?
Well, first, texture artists are just crucial for visual realism and immersion, no doubt about it. Their work needs that blend, artistic eye, technical skill. You can't really have one without the other at a high level.
And the need to keep learning.
Constantly. And collaboration. It's a team sport. Understanding materials deeply, optimizing for the platform, being flexible, that's the job.
They really are the unsung heroes bringing digital worlds to life, adding that final layer of believability.
Absolutely. So maybe next time you're playing a game or watching an animated film, just pause for a second. Look at the surfaces, the wood grain, the fabric weave, the scratches on the metal. Appreciate the artistry that went into making it look just right.
And maybe a final thought to leave people with. We hear so much about AI generating content now. How do you think that might change the role of the texture artist?
That's the big question, isn't it? AI tools might automate some parts of the process, maybe generate base materials faster, but will they have the artistic judgment, the eye for subtle detail, the ability to perfectly match an established art style or collaborate on a specific vision?
So the fundamental skills might become even more important.
Could be. Understanding why something looks good, the principles of art, the storytelling through surfaces.
Right.
Maybe those human skills remain indispensable. It's definitely something to watch and something for aspiring artists to think about what skills will always be valuable.
A fascinating thought to end on. Definitely gives you a new appreciation for the craft.